Nomusa Lwandle, khona okuzwakalayo
Dada,
guys. Khona okuzwakalayo angizwa lutho mina.
ngiyakuzwa mina uphumelele singamuzwa.
Akazwakali at all.
Wena uyangizwa?
Ya ngiyakuzwa
Musa,
Yeah,
I think uphumelele usa busy with her device because I can't hear her.
Okay sis.
Yeah.
umuntu ufaka umute la. Udokotela lo what?
How?
Okay, guys. If device it has a problem, so I'm using the other one. Yes, yeah. So unfortunately, this one doesn't want to show me now with video. So
Umfana eh. That's good. All right, Sabah John. Kita ni mo susunod na lang ni right side. B2, 84. Medical B.
Medical too.
Yay. Oh, okay, ngiyabonga. Siya pa lang po. Okay, mami, ngiyabonga.
Musa, buya mama. Sego right.
all right, guys. Everything is well now. So we are starting with some of you already know my name. If you don't, my name is Pumelele Hadebe. So today we'll be starting with the introduction to occupational health and safety. So for every one of us to understand this course, we need to start with the introduction and then we go to the legislation. So today we will try and do both introduction and the legislation. So if the time is still on our side, we're going to do both introduction and legislation. If it's not, then we will have to do the legislation
So
So I
manje somele singene isikhathi sedlule kudala sesikhona u-3. Manje kuyasiphuthume ingane kumele siyoyilanda esikoleni.
you can't be on the class and having your personal conversations. Okay, guys, I'm just gonna remove this person because yeah, we can't afford any disturbance. Asana sonane. We don't have time. All right. So occupational health and safety. So for the AMA students who need to understand the occupational health and safety, I like to first break down these ways, so these terms, occupation. So occupation, it refers to someone's job description, right? And then health, it's a state of being well, physically, emotionally, and financially. So there is health. And then safety, it's a state of feeling protected from harm. It's a state of being free from harm. Have you ever noticed that even you can pass by the police station at 12 at night, but you won't feel unsafe because you know that you are protected, right? So occupational health and safety is about protecting people at work from injuries, from illnesses, from accidents, and unsafe conditions, right? So a simple definition that I usually like to use is that OHS is about making sure that everyone goes to work and comes back home safe and sound, right? So the definition that I love using so that everyone can understand. So now someone might ask that why is occupational health and safety important? Right? So occupational health and safety is important because it saves lives, it prevents the injuries and diseases, it protects the employers and employees legally. Remember, we are bounded by this certain act in South Africa. And then it also reduces the absenteeism and compensation claims. So remember, when you get injured in the workplace, now you are supposed to claim those COIDA things from Department of Labor. Now we are losing money, right? So if some of the employees are now claiming money because they were injured during the working hours, you have failed as a safety officer. Your job is to reduce the cost and improve the production. So paying hospital bills is just unnecessary cost that no company needs, right? So it also improves the OHS is also important because it also improves the productivity and morale, right? Remember when we during all the times, people who were working on the forest, they used the hand saws, but now they are using the cutters, the grinders, so that there will be more production, unlike using hand saws and axes, right? Okay, now let us talk about this legal framework. Remember, we said we are making sure that we save life and we protect employees and legally. So we have this legal framework in South Africa. So in South Africa, our OHS Act is guided by Occupational Health and Safety Act 85 of 1993. So we are under OHS Act 85 of 1993, right? So other relevant regulation are the construction, driving machinery, and general safety. But the most important act is Act 85 of 1993, right? So the purpose of this act, it is to protect health and safety of employees and others at work. So that is the purpose of this act. People were getting injured on ancient times and they were not getting compensated. if you get injured and now you are not able to work, then they'll just tell you to go home without getting anything. So this act is there to prevent that, to make sure that people get compensated, right? We also have the roles and the responsibilities of employer and employees. So their responsibilities are different. So the roles of we're going to start with the responsibilities of the employer. So according to Occupational Health and Safety Act, Section 8, right? So let us look at Section 8. Our Section 8, it stipulates that every employer has to provide a safe working environment. They have to provide PPE, they have to train the employees, they have to identify the hazard and assesses the risk. So the appointment of SHREPs, also the appointment of SHREPs and the committees, it is the duty or the responsibilities of the employer. And then when we look at the employees, their responsibilities is just simple. You must follow the safety rules. You must use the PPE correctly. You must report unsafe working conditions. You must work safely and responsible. So you are not only responsible for your safety, but for the safety of your colleagues as well, right? And then we look at the hazard and the risk of occupational health and safety. So when we start today, we're going to speak about hazard and risk and so it's going to be always be about hazard and risk. So every topic will include hazard and risk. So what is a hazard? A hazard is anything that can cause harm. It's anything with the potential to cause harm. So there is a hazard. For example, if the floor is wet, if there are electricity cables lying around, chemicals working at heights. So those are the types of hazards. So basically, so hear this, everything that is around you is a hazard. Okay? Everything that is around you is a hazard. It's just up to you on how do you rate the hazard. How do you think this, the risk or the severity or the danger of the hazard? So everything is a hazard, and there will always be hazard. You will not be able to say, let me just eliminate all these hazards. No, there'll always be hazard because everything is a hazard. It depends on the danger. Like the cutlery, if you are eating with your cutlery, fork and knife, that cutlery is not, it's a hazard, but not to you as an adult, right? But when you go to a restaurant with a kid, they're gonna be given the plastic cutlery. Why? Because this one is a hazard to them. So it's just simple as that. You need to know that if you say something is a hazard, who is at risk, right? Who is at risk, right? And how severe is this? How is the likelihood of a person getting hurt or the danger of the hazard? That is simple like that. So a risk, let us define a risk. A risk is the chance of the hazard will cause harm. So it's the likelihood or the probability of harm happening. That is the risk. So I think we are always using this risk word. So we know the meaning of risk. So a risk is a risk. So we have some types of workplace hazards. We have physical hazards. We have chemical hazards. We have biological hazards. We have economic and psychological. So when you are doing your risk assessment, your hazard identification and risk assessment, you need to know and classify these hazards according to this. You need to be able to identify the physical hazards, the chemical, the biological, the economic, and the psychological. So now I'm gonna make the example on how to differentiate these hazards. So when we speak of physical hazards, we are speaking of noise, we are speaking of heat, We are speaking of machinery, so those are our physical hazards. And then when we look at chemical hazard, it's the gases, it's the dust, it's the fumes, right? Those are the chemical hazards. Killing chemicals as well, they all fall under chemical hazards. And then biological hazard. So when we speak of biological hazard, we are speaking of viruses, bacteria, fungi, blood, and waste. So those are types of biological hazard. And then we look at the economic hazard. I also mentioned the economic. So the economic hazard, guys, it's something that affects you personally, right? That's gonna affect your body personally, right? Like doing same things, same work procedures every day. Have you ever noticed that the truck drivers and bus drivers, in the long run, they always complain about, or they are always diagnosed with kidney failures? That is because of the work that they're always doing. And also, those people who work by lifting heavy things, they also suffer from economic hazard and poor posture. I cannot be sitting like this for 8 hours without a movement, so I'm gonna suffer from back pain. So economic hazards might not affect you now. So they might not affect you now. At some point, you will be affected. Maybe not today, maybe not in 2 months, maybe in 5 years. You're gonna start feeling that no, I think I have a kidney failure, which is something all the bus drivers, the truck drivers, they suffer from, right? And then we have the last one, which is psychological hazard. Psychological, we include the depression, the stress, the fatigue, the harassment, the bullying in the workplace. So those things are things that affect you psychologically, right? And then before we go to our legislations, let us look at the hazard identification and risk assessment. So our HIRA is very important. So we're just gonna look at the basic steps of HIRA. I'm just gonna highlight the basic steps. So we identify the hazard, we assess the risk, we decide on the control measures, we implement the control measures, and then we monitor. So when I'm speaking of the control measures, sometimes they are called the hierarchy of controls. So our control measures, someone might call them the hierarchy of controls. So our control measures, they include elimination, substituting, engineering controls, administrative controls, PPE. So PPE is always the last measure. You need to first try to eliminate the hazard. If you can't eliminate the hazard, you substitute the hazard. If we can't substitute, we apply the engineering controls. If our engineering controls are failing, now we look at the administrative controls, and then if all of these are failing, and then we look, we go to the PPE, right? So okay, before I continue, anyone has a question?
Oh, for now, I'm started.
Okay.
Okay, can I ask economic? Okay, if I may add, the way the employers they carry something. I think nayo iyangena kwi-economy because abanye abasebenzi baphatha izinto ngendlela wrong. So I think kwesinye isikhathi bagcina sebelimele. So ngiyacabanga ukuthi i-safety officer kumele ebajwayeze ukuthi abasebenzi baphatha kanjani, because ngelinye ilanga bayaba affected.
Yes.
Economic.
Yes, thank you so much, Lwandle.
Okay.
You are absolutely correct. Okay, now let us look at the hierarchy of controls. So I said we have the control measures, which are also called the hierarchy of control. So when they ask you about the control measures, not saying the hierarchy of controls, or when they ask the hierarchy of controls, you must know that they are looking for the control measures. So the hierarchy of controls, it's a system that is used to control the hazards in the workplace, starting from the most effective to the least effective method, right? So the aim of this is to control the hazard, not the worker, right? So when we are implementing the hierarchy of controls, we are trying to control the hazard, not the workers, right? So yeah, so we're going to start with elimination, right? So elimination, it means completely remove the hazard from the workplace, right? You completely remove the hazard from the workplace, right? Like, for example, you stop using a dangerous machine, you remove wicked heights by doing work on the ground, right? We know that when we are doing work at height, so first, before working at height, you have to see, you have to think, can I bring this work down to the ground level? Or is it a must that I do it on height? So if there is an alternative that you can do it on the ground level, you bring your work at a ground level to avoid hazards, right? And also you remove the chemical, the harmful chemicals from the process. So if we are using certain chemicals and something can be used without adding those certain chemicals, then we do that because we are trying to eliminate completely, right? So this type of hierarchy of control, it's most effective. I don't know, like it's the most effective, but it is not always possible, right? Because if the danger is gone, right, there is no, there can never be no hazard. So there will always be, you just have to mitigate it. So yes, we have a choice to eliminate, but it cannot be possible. Remember, people are also hazards. So if we say we are eliminating, that means now we are cutting down the as well. How is that possible? Yes, we can say, let us cut down the semi-skilled or the unskilled staff, right? It's not possible. It's not gonna work, right? We just have to find a way to do what? Number two, substituting. Yes. We have to find a way to substitute that. So which means we are replacing the hazard with something less dangerous. Yeah. So for example, you must replace a toxic chemical with a safer one. You can use the battery-powered tools instead of petrol-powered tools. We can use the less noisy machinery. It's very effective, right? It's very effective if the hazard is reduced, not removed, right? It's only reduced. It is not. So if your hazard was on medium or was on high, then it's gonna be medium. So we want our hazard to always be low, to always be green. So we also use the color coding when we speak of our hazard. If the hazard we say it's red, we know that it's a high hazard, it's a high risk, it can cause death. If it's medium, it's something that is manageable, but we must make it green, which is low. That means it will always be there. We just have to mitigate the risk. And then we move to the engineering controls, meaning we physically isolate people from the hazard using the equipment or the design, right? For example, using the machine guards, adding the ventilation system in the workplace, adding the barriers and handrails, noise enclosures. So this control measure, it controls the hazard at a source, right? It can be expensive. So we are trying to reduce cost. So sometimes we might not go with the engineering things because they are expensive, and we do not have that kind of money. And then we have the administrative controls, which is number 4, meaning we change the way people make through rules in our procedures, right? We change the way the people or the employees work through adding more rules and the following safe procedures, right? For example, we will add safe work procedures, job rotation. If you're working, if you're working as receiving SHIREP at the receiving side, then at some point you need to rotate and go to storeroom, right? So that everyone can learn the environment, the home, not solely focusing on a specific task. And then we look at the job, okay, warning sign. So we add the warning sign. We implement training, we take people to training and supervision. So there must be competent supervision at the site. And then we have, that is where we also have the permit system. So we only hear of permit systems on the mines. So when we now implement something of a permit system, it means no one is allowed to go there without having a permit. No one is allowed to be on site without having a permit, which also helps us reduce people getting injured, right? So this one is easy to implement. It also the problem is that it relies on human behavior, right? Because people forget. So our issue is that it's easy to implement, but it relies on human behavior, and people tend to forget things a lot. And then the last but not least, it's a PPE. So when you see people wearing PPE, guys, just know that we have tried all these 4 hierarchical controls and failed. That is where we started recommending PPE. You guys remember during COVID-19, they tried the vaccines, we tried eating garlics and all that, drinking lemons, all those things. They failed until they said, okay, for the country to be open, we need to wear face shields, wear face masks so that we can go and try to go on about our lives. So PPE is important. So that was part of PPE, right? So it is very important. So the PPE, it protects the workers. It doesn't do anything to the hazard. It's only there to protect the workers because we have failed to remove these hazards, right? For example, the helmets, safety helmets, the gloves, the safety shoes, the goggles, the respirators. It is okay, the PPE is less effective and it can fail if it is not used correctly. Remember, when Ramaphosa was addressing the country, he failed to wear the mask correctly because he was not trained. So imagine a simple thing as a face mask. How much more those complicated PPEs, right? People will fail to use them correctly, and they might be injured. So the PPE is always the last line of defense. So you need to try all these steps before resorting or suggesting the PPE. Right? So it's elimination, substituting, engineering control, administrative, and PPE. Right? So it's just that, and it's just that on hierarchy of controls, there's nothing that you ever learn on hierarchy of controls. So it's this. Now, before we move from hierarchy of controls, do we have a question?
No, for now.
Okay, if no one has a question, let us look at accidents and incidents before going to our acts. So there is an accident, guys, and an incident. So people, they tend to use these words interchangeably. So we know that we are used with the term accident because we refer to the car crash as accident, right? We said it's a car accident when there was a car crash. So we know that, and that is absolutely correct. But then we have the incident. So an incident, it's, how can I say, the accident, it's where kuyingozi, and then an incident is isigameko. So an incident is something that has happened, either it caused injury or almost, right? So there is an incident. So we have to report the accident and incident, and we report the near misses as well. We investigate them so that we prevent a recurrence, and then we don't hide the incident. We also try to fix the system. And then we have something called safety culture on safety. So everyone must take a responsibility of their safety and the safety of others. Now, I hope you guys still have no questions, so I'm just gonna try and because this phone, this device has no document that I'm using, so I project. I'm gonna join the class again with my account so that I'm gonna project something and then look at the legislations. So the aim is that I must be able to share my screen. That's all. Okay, guys, I'm going to send you the documents. Don't worry. Those who are on the group, you're going to have all these documents that I'm using. So let's just log in. I'm trying to find my book for Acts. So this is our website. Okay, so this is my study guide, right? It's Understanding Occupational Health and Safety Act and Regulations, right? So let us look at this. Here it says the Department of Labor enforces compliance to the occupational health and safety by doing the inspections and giving notices. So these notices can include contravention and improvement. So when we speak of contravention, it's prohibiting work on dangerous machines or activities. And then when we speak of improvement, we are advising on further improvements to be made, right? So if a company is found to be non-compliant to certain sections or regulations, then the company faces the closure, so it might be shut down. 50-year fine, so 50,000 fine. So that's nothing. We are so used to being bribed. So, and then 1 year in jail. So who's gonna get arrested? It's the owner of the company and the safety officer. So you can get arrested. Or both, or you can both, or you can face the closure and jail time, right? So we're just gonna start with section 7. So our section 7, it speaks about health and safety policy. Here it says, if you have 5 or more employees, you need a health and safety policy in the workplace. So if you have 5, it doesn't matter what kind of job that you are doing, but if your employees are 5 or more than 5, then there must be a safety policy with the rules and regulations, right? B, this policy must show your dedication to their health and safety and must be signed by you. C, the policy must be on display in a prominent place and employees must be made aware of it. So when you go or when you enter the restaurants, you're just gonna find their safety policy on the kitchen side on display. So it has everything, including the leaves, the working hours, the sick leaves, everything that has to do with being at work. And then let us look to section 8. Oh, so, okay, let me just explain this. So you might go to, so the safety policy, guys, is important. It's the first thing that you do in a workplace when you get there. When you are appointed as a safety officer in Sebenzini, you must make sure that you look at their safety policy, you revise things to protect yourself, because it might happen that you are hired in vendor, right? So if you are hired in vendor and they're gonna make sure that they speak their language, same as we do with our language on the side. So now, if they start speaking their language, how are you going to communicate with them? So on your safety policy, you need to stipulate that the language that is being spoken here is English, right? So you are not being racist or anything because it's also not your language, but according to South African Constitution, English, it's the medium language of instruction. So if uwenza a safety policy, it must protect yourself as well, as much as it sounds selfish, but it must protect you from the employees as well, because bazoloku bekhuluma language abo and you can't communicate with them. So you need to convey the message, right? Okay, let us move to section 8 quickly. You must try to make the workplace as safe and healthy as possible. The machines must be as safe as possible. The risk assessment must be done by a competent person. So when we speak of a competent person, it is someone who is trained, right? Staff must be made aware of workplace hazards and safety measures. There must be a competent supervision, and PPE must be issued and staff must be trained on its use. So when they give you PPE, they also need to show you how is this PPE used, how is this certain thing worn, right? So that was section 8, the employer duties. So again, guys, there are duties employer. Kube ama-duties akho as a safety officer, because it might happen ukuthi employer yakho akazi lutho and they just inherited a business from ubaba wakhe oyisibili and then appointed you as safety because akafuna ukuzingena. So wena leyo koshwa and everything, you are responsible because kukhethwe wena, because yena uno grade 2 akazi lutho ube ubhekifa, right? And then section 9, it's the health and safety of others. So you need to ensure the health and safety of those who do not work with you Example, the visitors and clients. So if our responsibilities are as employee emsebenzini, you are not only responsible for yourself, right? Nalabo sebenza nabo kuphela, but nama visitor and ama-client emsebenzini, responsible for them. For example, you can shop at Woolworths or Pick and Pay with ease because you can feel it's safe. But when I was 27 to 5, you can't go to Boxer and shop you feel safe, right? So we need to make sure that those things, they do not happen because it's so client because I feel safe. Section 13, duty to inform. So la duties ukuthi we must inform the staff members of workplace hazard and safety measures. So onke ama-hazard akhona emsebenzini, that's why ekuseni we have the toolbox talks emsebenzini. It's because we need to inform them ukuthi izolo ngithole ama-hazard awukuthi nokuthi and ngidecide ukuthi sisebenze kahle ukuze sikwagwema engasilimazi, all right? Kubalulekile ukuthi ubatshele abantu ukuthi you are working in a mine, maybe an underground mine. So fanele ube specific ukuthi there might be some time ungeke uzophume uzosala ne-cage ngaphansi, right? So we need to agree, kumele ube aware ukuthi you are working on a high risk environment. So ukuze nawe uzokwazi akusikho ukuthi bakuthusa, but we are trying to make people prioritize i-safety yabo, yabo. Because kumele umtshele ukuthi yabona lento eyenzeka eMarikana naseLily Gold, it might happen to you. You might go underground and vanish ne-cage yakho ngene kuyo ungaphinde uthole, right? So for ukuthi si-prevent lokho, you need to follow these things. You need to do this, and then you have control measures that you have decided on. Yabo. And then you must inform safety reps of inspections, inquiries and notices. So if Department of Labor and notice they are coming for inspection, when as a safety, because sometimes you have too much duties, so you need to inform. You need to inform Ushirepo ukuze ezoba khona for ama-visit our-labor, akwazi uku-observe abuke izinto ey'bonwa u-labor engekho right enizolungisa. Section 14, employees. The employee must follow lawful instruction by the employer. The employee must report unsafe conditions. Employees must report incidents and injuries. Employees must look after their health and safety and as well as of others. So this one, it's very important to Section 14. It emphasizes the employees, if you feel that you are not safe or you are working you are working with so many hazards and it might put your life on danger, you have a right to tell your employer that this is unsafe. So not only that, you can also report them on Department of Labor. Like people from construction, you can't be expected to work when it's raining. So you can report that site and they might close it down. You must report the incident and injuries. So aslind ukuthi kuze kube kusasa ekuseni and then sithi ayi ngilimalile mina izolo, yabo. So immediately i-incident yenzeka or injury, we are report. Section 15, duty not to interfere. Okay, this one is important. I remember this one time when I was working at Galitos, so we saw content, even the content in a fire extinguisher. It was someone's birthday, so by tata dry chemical, bamfutha ngayo ngoba birthday. And then we also did that without knowing ukuthi lento le it's against umthetho. So yonke into ebekwe emsebenzini that is supposed to help you in health and safety matters asidlali ngayo. Yabo. So we had to pay ukuthi bayayisevisa the whole fire, the whole fire extinguisher ngomholo wethu ungapheli cabanga. So and then section 16 CEO. The CEO can transfer duties into another person, a manager, but that person cannot incur any legal liability. So if mina as a CEO, I'm transferring my duties kuwena, you are not going to be liable if there's a fine, there's a boshwa and all that. Mina as CEO who's fan or shire, but to safety officer, iyakacela. But OSHA they are not liable as well. Yithi nje esigaxelelayo as or safety officer. And then section 17, appointment of safety reps. Bakhethwa kanjani ke OSHA rep emsebenzini ukuze kuthiwe khona they always say this that sometimes it is useless ukufundela OSHA rep because labantu abaqashwa ukuthi kube post external post abantu who are nominated ngaphakathi emsebenzini, right? So lapha it says if you have 20 employees you need to appoint safety reps. So njengamanje izitori eziningi they have OSHA rep because inamba yabo it exceeds 20. Safety rep per 50 employees in a factory, one safety rep per 100 employees in a shop or office. The safety reps must be full-time and appointed in writing for a specific time. Safety reps must be nominated by the employees and approved by the employer. So asimkhethi ushi rep just because umngani wakho emsebenzini, no, we nominate them ngoba sibona ukuthi umuntu ozokwazi ukukhulumela abasebenzi, right? Because umuntu oshi rep umuntu osuke emele uzorepresenta abasebenzi emsebenzini. The OSHA rep functions must take place during normal hours. So if you were a cashier and you were working 8 hours shift yakho, we can't say izinto zaka safety rep zakho as OSHA rep uzozenza ngesikhathi sakho or endlini. No, shuthi now sesinciphisa ama-hour ozowaspenda as i-cashier or i-merchandiser, and then maybe we give you 6 hours as a cashier and 2 hours as wenza duties apho our rep. So lokho that only applies ikakhulukazi ey'tolo because thina if u-appointwe as OSHA rep usuwazi ama-duties akho kuma-construction wenza wona nje uqala no kuze kuyovalwa i-site. Section 18, functions and rights of OSHA rep. So izinto abazenzayo-ke they check for hazard in their appointed areas. They make representations to the employer. They take complaints from his staff. They participate in investigating the incident. They participate in company audits. Baphelezelo inspector with permission. Bathatha technical expert makwenziwa ama-inspection emsebenzini. So they need to get that permission. Baphelezelo nama-safety audits ukuze bezokwazi ukufunda lokho. And then-ke kufanele akwazi lazo udlulise, hhayi ukuthi because usuke uyi-barrier between umsebenzi nomqashi wena u-speaker wabo. So uma usuzohluleka into abakunominatele yona, so you have failed as OSHA rep nalapho. So OSHA rep-ke uhlala for 3 years and then bemshintshe emsebenzini. You cannot spend more than 3 years as OSHA rep unless-ke kuyi-company yasekhayelini. But it's the rule. Very difficult zakhona in 3 years they expire and then we nominate omunye umuntu as OSHA rep. And then we have section 19, establishing SHIP committees. So we know the SHIP committees is, even ezikoleni we have committees, community, and committees, committee lenkatha, committee le-NC. So nasemsebenzini-ke siba nama-committee akanjalo-ke. So ikomiti-ke, ama-committee asemsebenzini, mhlawumbe asuke nabasebenzi abawu-5, nabantu abakwi-management abawu-5, o-SHIREP, o-safety, ama-manager, o-supervisor. So it has to be the equal number of management and the equal number of employees. Ukuze makuvotwa, kungabi ukuthi abasebenzi banezwi elikhulu, banezwi numbered by o-supervisor ekomidini. So fanele silingane. Kumele abaqashi kwi-committee. As soon as there are 2 safety reps emsebenzini, fanele kufonywe i-committee. If sesiba u-2 o-SHIREP, sekufanele kube khona i-committee lapho. The committee members must be appointed in writing for a specific time. Nayo le committee iyashintsha from time to time. Ayihlali nje ukuthi seyineba ilunga le committee forever. No. The committee consists of health and safety members and equal number of management appointments. The I was explaining Kaleni. Section 20, we have the functions of health and safety committees. Health and safety committees, they discuss all issues that are related to health and safety. So umsebenzi wabo lowo udiscussa lokho. Ama-minutes must be taken, ama-record ayagcinwa, our meeting, so everyone vele uyawagcina ama-minutes, ama-meeting. Okay, so sigcina section 20 guys. I think I'm just gonna send this document as it is. Basically, ama-act 6 la abalulekile. Isikhathi, it's not on our side. My device, ikhasi lami selizocisha anytime from now. So thank you so much for joining namhlanje. Every after class, ngizoshare ama-study guides. Ngizoshare ama-documents engisuke ngade ngiwasebenzisa every after class lethu. So izobonana kusasa, same time, same place, egruphini. Bye guys.
Same time, same place tomorrow. Bye-bye. Peace out.
Siyabonga kakhulu, siyabonga kakhulu.
Siyabonga kusasa guys.